heard about a commercial flight that was going somewhere, and the pilot came on the intercom and he said, "Okay, folks, I've got good news and I've got bad news. Bad news is we're lost. Good news is we're making excellent time." I wanted you to hear that because I want you to have a different understanding of what this word lost means. Lost doesn't just mean in the eternal, eschatological sense. Lost doesn't just mean going to hell. It means that. But very important for us to know right now is that it also means we're going through life and we don't know where we're going. But you know what? You're making time getting through it because you're all growing older. I'm growing older. You're all growing older. We're all on this trip of life. And if you're lost, you don't know what your priority is in life, you don't know what where you're headed in life, life is just all confusing, and it's like a kaleidoscope. You don't really understand it. There may be some neat things going on, but you're lost. And that's what I see mostly of the people that I know in the circles where I work. People who are lost, they don't have this. Why do you think teen suicide is so high? People who don't have a purpose, people who don't have a direction are lost. And like I said, I don't mean that right now. I don't mean that in the sense of going to hell. Yeah, that too. But lost means you don't know why in the world you're here. Well, 1 Corinthians 13 tells us that. Priority 1 is loving God. Priority 2 is loving others. Priority 3 is loving myself. Priority 1 is loving God. Now, we have talked about that. We will talk more about it at some point. But think about what that means, building this relationship with God. How frustrating it must be to be God. Because for most of us, we think the only way to really have a relationship with God is to pray to Him. But pray, what if somebody called you up and just jabbered, talk, kept talking, and then just hung up on you? And that's what we do in our prayers so many times. We don't listen, we just talk. Part of a relationship is being able to listen to each other and listening to God. Loving others, second priority. I want to talk to you just a minute about something called neurotic selflessness. It's a mental disorder. And it's a person who believes that they've got to work their hearts out for everybody else, to sacrifice, to give, to serve. There's nothing wrong with that. But in the process, they neglect their own self and their own families. This mental disorder is called neurotic selflessness. Nothing wrong with being selfless, but when it becomes neurotic, it is wrong. And the best example of that is Leo Tolstoy. Tolstoy, those other big, thick Russian novels. Tolstoy had a real interesting philosophy of life in many ways. But if you really want to get to know Tolstoy, you need to read his wife's diaries. Sophia. Her diaries, they've been published in the last 50 years. She talked about how he was always willing to give things that they had to other people. How he was always willing to go to the neighbors and carry buckets of water, help them build houses, whatever. But she said, I don't ever recall him ever carrying a bucket of water for me, even when I was bearing his children. That's neurotic selflessness. And he had a vow of chastity. Think about that one. Took a vow of chastity, still had, which made him more angry at Sophia because he blamed her. It's her fault. So he wouldn't help her around the house. He wouldn't help with the chores. She talks in her diaries about having sick children, and he's off helping somebody else's sick child. Now, when he became a Christian, he made that decision that he was going to give his life to helping others, but he really messed it up in terms of helping his own family. And number 3 is loving myself. Now, I've put this out here because I want you to think about this just for a minute. Part of that means protecting ourselves from OPAs. I'm going to come back to that just in a moment, but I want you to try to think about what those 3 letters stand for, OPAs. But this is a very important lesson. A lot of Christians seem to think that the way I really become a great Christian is by hating myself. And we misuse and mistranslate and misinterpret passages like where Jesus says, deny yourself and that sort of thing. And those passages are so often misused. I want you to think about how ridiculous that would be, that God would tell us to love other selves, but not to love our own self. Would you think about that just a minute? Oh, we're a self created by God. For me, that word self means soul, but you can take it however you want to mean it. It doesn't matter. We're to love ourselves. And here's another thing about that, too. You can't really love others if you don't love yourself. And that's one of the neatest things about 1 Corinthians 13. It tells us how to love ourselves. There's all of these definitions in here. Now, what does it mean, protecting ourselves from OPAs? What is an OPA? Other people's agenda. Anybody in your life that's always got an agenda for you? They love you and they have an agenda for you. And if you don't follow that agenda, you're not loving them back. But you're also supposed to love yourself. I don't have to belong to other people's agendas. That's a problem. But it's a problem we'll have to get to at another time.